Next question is from TM Goodner. Can you help explain why bodybuilding or strength training results in limited mobility? Why is it that when we get stronger and build muscle, our range of motion is limited and moving in the old ways becomes painful?
This is a myth.
It's a huge myth.
Yeah.
However,
It's a myth.
I would like to address why some people experience this, because some people definitely do experience this. They'll start working out with weights and they'll say, I'm stiffer. Here's what's happening. Okay. First off, it is a myth. Proper full range of motion resistance training improves functional flexibility. It's one of the best ways to give you better functional flexibility. But then why do some people
training in full range of motion?
Yes. Why do some people get this? Well, if I gain 50% more strength in a short range of motion, you see bodybuilders do this all the time. Like they'll do a shoulder press, they'll stop right here, right? Or they'll do a bench press, they'll stop right here. Or they'll do a row and they'll have short range of motion. If you increase your strength dramatically in that short range of motion, what happens is you've actually lost stability in the full range of motion. And so then what your body does to protect itself is it maintains your movement within the stronger range of motion. Because if I can theoretically curl 200 pounds from here to here, but then down here, it's like 50 pounds, anytime I go to curl or lift something, my body's going to automatically prevent me from moving outside of my strong range of motion. And that's why you see tightness.
Not the actual strength training that's produced. It's the way you're training.
Yes.
And so to completely shorten your range of motion and try to squeeze the pinnacle of the bicep, or like some of these sort of techniques where we're just trying to hyper focus on, one element of that lift and not go through full range of motion. You could do it enough times where your body is going to sort of prioritize where you're strong and where you're not as strong. And so you have a governing system in your body that limits the ability of you getting hurt, by applying force where you're not as strong. And so it's really like what are you teaching your body how to do? Where are you going to be strong in terms of that specific range of motion? You got to address that specifically with weights and get that end range strength.
I also think that this chasing soreness all the time is just making it worse too. Right, so you're already
just stiff because you're sore.
Yeah, you're already training in a shortened range of motion on a regular basis, and to the point that you were making. And then in addition to that, you're also caught in this trap of always chasing being sore all the time to prove to yourself that you had a good workout. And so you're walking around stiff and tight, and it feels like you've lost range of motion because you are locked up and you've gotten strength in the shortened range of motion and you don't train in the full range of motion. And so then people make this connection of, oh, wow, being a bodybuilder or training for strength limits my range of motion up. And it's like, no, that's not bad training does, and that's part of what we're always trying to address on here when you hear us talking about training through full range of motion. And if you can't, is to work on that, because strength training is one of the best ways to do that. And it's the complete opposite of what people think.
Look, it's no different than this. Like, having trained lots of clients, you'll get the occasional female executive who wears heels every single day for years and years at work. And what you'll find is really tight calf muscles and tight muscles of the foot. Now, is that because what she's doing is shortening the muscle and somehow or she's losing range of motion because the muscle itself is tight, or no? What's happened is because she's always with this toe point all the time,
in a flex position,
she's got really strong in that flex position, and that strength now is disproportionate to the other ranges of motion of the foot and the ankle. And so the protection mechanism that the body produces is it limits the range of motion. Because look, here's how flexibility works, right? It's controlled by your central nervous system. It's not controlled by the muscle as if it were like
elasticity or something.
Yeah, it's not like a rubber band that if you heat it up, it gets more flexible, and if you cool it, make it cold, it gets brittle. I remember once it was explained to me that way when I was an early trainer. That's not at all what's happening.
I thought that initially.
Yeah, it's not at all what's happening. The central nervous system controls it. It'll tell a muscle, relax, we feel safe, you can stretch, or, ooh, we got to be tight. Oftentimes people will be tight, and it's not the muscles that are tight, it's the CNS saying, limit this range of motion. Anything outside of this range of motion
we're weak.
Is weak and is unstable. So if you get really strong, if you're look at a full squat, right, all the way down, all the way up, and you get really strong at a half squatting, like really strong, the ratio of your strength from the half squat to full squat now is so broad that when you go do anything and you squat down, your body's going to limit it. Yeah, it's going to say, oh, outside of that, get tight. Outside of that, get tight, because we don't want to go down any further than this.
Protect you. I
Yes.
mean, that's really the mechanism that's in place. And
Yes.
It's an important one for your body to have so you don't just tear your muscle right off the bone.
Right. But full range of motion resistance training, full range of motion is that's the opposite. It increases the strength all the way through the range of motion, increases stability, and now you have real functional flexibility that can work in the real world. Now, you may be thinking, I can't do full range of motion on some exercises. That's okay. The goal is to be able to get there though. So your goal is to work towards that point through correctional exercise. You can use programs like MAPS Prime Pro. You can go lighter, correct your form. But the full range of motion training does the opposite of what you see sometimes with meatheads where they're super stiff.
Well, this also highlights the young, because how often you hear this too with young kids who don't want to do mobility work because they don't have any aches and pains. There are other reasons why you should be training mobility besides just to prevent chronic pain. And I think that's how it's commonly used right now. Like, it's not hard convincing a 40-year-old plus that listens to the show that they should do mobility, because they're like, yeah, and they feel the difference immediately when they do it. But if you're young and you train like a bodybuilder, or you try to press the weight and build all this muscle, and you are not working through full range of motion, this is a reason why you want to incorporate mobility into your training so you don't end up in this situation.
Totally. Look, you get a lot of check engine lights that appear before pain. Okay. So pain is like, it's like you have a check engine light on, you ignore it, and then smoke starts coming out of the engine. That's pain. By the time you hurt, lots of things have led up to that point. So for someone who's young and listening and saying, well, I feel fine, that doesn't mean you are fine. Okay. That just means you haven't got to the point where the pain will start to happen. By the way, once you start to hurt, you have to backtrack, and it takes a while. And it's not just when the pain stops. You still got more room to go before you're doing really great. And I will say this, just to entice young people even more. Mobility training will make you build more muscle and make you stronger anyway, because it improves your connection, your range of motion. So forget the pain part. You want to maximize your results in the gym. Work on mobility. Work on mobility now. Work on mobility always. It'll do that.